The crystalline spires of Aethel Prime pierced an artificially perfect twilight, reflecting a millennia of undisturbed order. Elder Kalen stood overlooking his flawless empire, a monument to genetic purity and controlled evolution. Far beyond, a holographic display shimmered, revealing a vibrant, chaotic Solari world, teeming with uncontrolled life. Within the vast, circular council chamber, Elder Kalen addressed the Aethel leadership, serene on his floating platform. For cycles, our species has perfected itself, achieving ultimate genetic and societal harmony. Now we turn our gaze to the nascent Solari, a species whose uncontrolled proliferation offers unique scientific insight. Chief Archivist Xylos projected initial data, Solari's rapid, chaotic development, their imperfections, a stark contrast to Aethel's ordered existence. The council nodded, the decision a mere formality, a routine calculus of progress. From the cloaked silence of the Aethel observation vessel orbiting the Solari homeworld, Chief Archivist Xylos meticulously monitored. Solari communications buzzed with frantic curiosity, their rudimentary spaceflight attempts clumsy but fervent. He noted their fervent drive, their unexpected adaptability in piecing together crude technologies from salvaged scrap. A minor anomaly in the grand design, certainly, but one that warranted continued, detached observation. Their evolution, while chaotic, was undeniably rapid. Pilot Jex wrestled with the failing controls of his small cargo vessel, far from Solari's systems. Alarms screamed as life support flickered. Then, a silent, impossibly sleek craft materialized, its bioluminescent hull glowing faintly. A beam of incapacitating light lanced out, freezing his ship. Jax cried out as the hull peeled open, mechanical tendrils reaching in, extracting his crew without a word, without a sound, just cold, unfeeling efficiency. Deep within the crystalline heart of Aethel Prime, Chief Archivist Xylos presented his initial findings. Sterile observation chambers, gleaming with unseen energy, held the quiescent forms of the recently sampled Solari. Elder Kalen, his form radiating an aura of calm authority, observed the holographic anatomical scans that pulsed between them. Their neural pathways are rudimentary, Elder, Xylos stated, his voice a precise, modulated tone. Emotional responses, while volatile, appear entirely predictable within established primitive parameters. No genetic optimizations. No engineered efficiencies. Kalen's lips, a thin line of perfection, curved almost imperceptibly. A species defined by its chaos, then. Their struggle for survival, while energetic, is ultimately irrelevant to the grand design. Continue the analysis. Confirm the fragility of their biological framework. He dismissed their spirited resistance as the flailing of a lesser creature, a mere data point in the vast calculus of Aethel knowledge. On the Solari homeworld, the air in the hastily assembled Defense Council chamber crackled with a very different kind of energy. Panic. Commander Lyra stood before the flickering tactical maps, her face grim. Another 3 cargo vessels, gone. No distress calls, no debris. Only these faint, anomalous energy signatures at the points of disappearance. The room erupted in a cacophony of fear and speculation. Elders, their faces etched with confusion, demanded answers Lyra couldn't provide. They are silent, invisible, one pleaded, like shadows consuming our ships. The vastness of the unknown threat settled over them, a suffocating dread. They were being hunted, picked off one by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't understand, and couldn't fight. Lyra slammed a fist on the table. Silence! Panic serves no purpose. We must find a pattern. We must understand who or what is doing this. Hours bled into days in the makeshift lab of the Solari defense outpost. Lyra, fueled by pure resolve, hunched over crude but effective scientific instruments. Her engineers, a mix of former miners and mechanics, worked with a focused intensity. Anything? She pressed, her voice hoarse. A young technician pointed to a glowing readout. Commander, the residual energy signatures from the last abduction site. They're consistent. A highly advanced, incredibly powerful energy pattern. We've never seen anything like it. It's alien, Commander, beyond anything we could produce. Lyra's eyes narrowed, a spark of grim determination igniting within their depths. So, we have a name for our shadows, now we need a face. And a weakness. We may not understand them, but we will find a way to make them understand us. Back in his private lab on Aethel Prime, Chief Archivist Xylos reviewed the daily observations of a captured Solari specimen. The subject, designated Solari 7, was housed in an elaborate restraint system designed for maximum biological and psychological data extraction. Yet, Solari 7 was not simply compliant. It was trying. Xylos observed the creature using a detached, almost primitive fingernail to repeatedly test a microscopic seam in its restraint, a seam designed to be impervious to such crude force. He recorded an unexpected rate of neural adaptation, a quickness to learn the system's tolerances to probe its weaknesses. This was no simple, chaotic organism. This was an asterisk adaptive one. An anomaly, Xylos murmured, a flicker of unease crossing his perfectly serene features. A flaw in the initial assessment of their primitiveness. Most peculiar. The Solari, once considered mere specimens, were about to demonstrate the raw, chaotic power of desperation. Commander Lyra watched the holographic display, her jaw tight. 3 repurposed cargo haulers, their reinforced hulls bristling with jury-rigged kinetic accelerators ripped from deep-core mining drones, lay hidden amidst a dense asteroid field. Their target, a sleek Aethel, sampling vessel, moving with the careless confidence of an apex predator. "Jax, you're clear," Lyra's voice cut through the comms, sharp and unwavering. "Hit their ventral array, make them feel it." Pilot Jax, a grizzled veteran of countless asteroid runs, grinned grimly. "Roger that, Commander. Time to teach these perfectionists about a little imperfection." His small scout craft, barely more than an engine with a cockpit, surged forward. Its engines, stripped from a long-range survey probe, screamed in protest. The Aethel vessel, the Purity's Gaze, barely registered the incoming micromunitions before Jax's desperate maneuver. He wasn't firing Zax's ship. He was flying Zaid its projected flight path, a suicidal dart. A beam of incapacitating energy lanced out, a familiar, paralyzing touch. Jax's shields, hastily cobbled from scavenged Aethel observation tech, flickered violently. "Taking hits! But I'm still coming!" he roared, his voice thick with adrenaline. Then, with a desperate lurch, he slammed his tiny craft into the asterisk Purity's Gaze, Mides Array's lower hull. Not a ram, but a precisely calculated impact. The Aethel vessel shuddered. Its crystalline shields, designed to deflect energy, rippled violently, then cracked under the sheer kinetic force. A jolt of raw, unrefined impact energy, the kind their perfect designs had never accounted for, flared across its primary shield emitter. On the Aethel bridge, the vessel's commander, Unit 847, let out a clicking sound of pure astonishment. Shields? Compromised? By what? The Solari, the primitive creatures, had drawn first blood. Jax's scout, a mangled husk of metal and spark, spun wildly from the impact, its systems failing. "I'm hit, Lyra, going in for the kill." His final words were swallowed by a blinding flash as his damaged engines detonated, tearing a gaping maw in the Aethel ship's underbelly. The Purity's Gaze listed sharply, its internal alarms wailing, its perfect systems spiraling into chaos. The Solari had given their all. "He did it," Lyra whispered, a grim satisfaction in her voice, quickly overshadowed by sorrow. "Jax, you absolute madman." She took a deep breath. "All boarding pods. Launch now. Priority 1. Secure the primary energon conduits and databanks. Forget the crew. Focus on the tech. Every circuit, every component, everything." Small, crude Solari boarding pods, looking like repurposed escape capsules, detached from the camouflaged haulers. They darted towards the gaping wound in the Aethel vessel, their magnetic clamps locking onto the biometal hull. Solari engineers, armed with cutting torches and data siphons, swarmed into the breach. Lyra watched the feeds, her face stark with resolve. "Jax bought us this. We will not waste it." This isn't just about survival anymore, it's about understanding, about turning their perfect designs against them. The air on her bridge hummed with a fierce, quiet determination. The cost was immense, but the knowledge would be invaluable. On Aethel Prime, Elder Kalen stood before the shimmering tactical display in his strategy chamber, his normally serene expression marred by a flicker of annoyance. Reports of the Asterix Purity's gaze toward Dane damage scrolled across the screen, each data point a tiny insult to Aethel perfection. Compromised shields? Kalen's voice, usually a calm resonance, held a sharp edge. By a asterisk kinetic impact from one of their crude scout vessels? This is an anomaly. A fluke. Their technology is primitive. Their tactics, suicidal. It is a desperate act, nothing more. Chief Archivist Xylos, observing from a nearby console, cleared his throat. Elder Kalen, while the impact was certainly unconventional, my analysis of the Solari's prior engagements, however limited, indicates an accelerated learning curve. Their modifications to what we perceive as mining equipment showed an unexpected efficiency, and the subsequent boarding action was remarkably coordinated for a species of their current developmental stage. Kalen waved a dismissive hand. They copied a few minor principles from our observation vessels. They are still infants, Xylos. This simply reinforces the need for a more decisive demonstration of our superiority. Send a full-spectrum force to their sector. 3 advanced cruisers, not 1. We will make them understand their place. Xylos inclined his head, but his gaze remained fixed on his datapad, where faint but undeniable patterns of Solari adaptation continued to emerge. The primitive race was not merely reacting, it was evolving. And the Aethel, in their unwavering belief in their own perfection, were blind to the most critical data point of all. Deep within a hollowed-out asteroid, bathed in the flickering glow of makeshift lighting, the Solari Hidden Research Facility hummed with a furious energy. Salvaged Aethel tech lay splayed across workbenches, its pristine surfaces scarred by Solari tools, its complex circuitry probed by eager, determined hands. Commander Lyra moved through the organized chaos, her presence a steadying force. "Report!" she called out to a team hunched over a dismantled Aethel shield generator. "Commander, the energy output is immense," a young engineer, grease smudging her cheek, exclaimed. "But it's bio-locked. It only responds to Aethel genetic signatures." Lyra knelt beside her, a glint in her eyes. "And what does a Solari do when a lock is in the way?" Another engineer, older and more experienced, grunted. "We pick it. We've found a way to bypass the signature recognition, Commander. It's crude. We're tricking the system with a cascade of chaotic, fluctuating energy patterns that mimic a damaged Aethel biosignature. It's unstable, but it works." Lyra smiled, a fierce, predatory expression. "Unstable, chaotic, and it works. That is the Solari way. Good. Double production on these chaotic shield emitters, and integrate the weapon systems we salvaged from the Cum-de-Sold good. Their precision targeting, our brute force. We will make them regret their perfection." The engineers, fueled by Lyra's resolve, redoubled their efforts. What had taken the Aethel millennia to refine, the Solari were deconstructing and repurposing in weeks. The crucible of war was forging them into something new, something the Aethel, with their rigid designs, could never have predicted. They were no longer just surviving. They were adapting, transforming, and preparing to turn the hunters into the hunted. Commander Lyra stood before the holographic map of the local sector, its swirling constellations casting an ethereal glow across the faces of her officers. Their faces were grim, etched with the memory of lost ships and abducted kin. For weeks they had bled defending scattered outposts, but no longer. Lyra's voice, though calm, cut through the tension like a sharpened blade. "They expect us to defend our worlds, to fight fair battles for territory. They expect us to be prey." Her gaze swept across the room, meeting each officer's eyes. "We will not hold ground. We will hunt." A low murmur rippled through the command center. Lyra gestured to the map, highlighting known Aethel supply routes and lightly defended observation posts. "Our newly adapted drives make us faster. Our reverse-engineered shields make us resilient. We will strike from the deep void, hit their vulnerable arteries, and disappear before their perfected fleets can react." She paused, her expression resolute. "We are no longer fighting for survival. We are fighting for vengeance, and we are going to teach the Aethel what it means to be hunted." The void was a canvas of black, until the Solari vessels erupted from an asteroid field like predatory shadows. 3 sleek ships, their hulls now gleaming with a captured Aethel energy signature, bore down on an isolated Aethel listening post. The Aethel station, a crystalline spindle designed for passive observation, had no time to register the threat. Commander Lyra's voice was a whisper in the comms, cold and precise. Focus fire on their shield generators. Do not waste a single shot. Beams of superheated plasma, once the exclusive domain of the Aethel, ripped through the station's outer defenses. The shields, once thought impenetrable, rippled, then fractured. The Solari ships moved with a terrible, unyielding grace, closing the distance. A final volley tore into the spindle's core, turning it into a silent, expanding cloud of debris. There were no distress calls, no Aethel survivors, only the chilling efficiency of a species that had learned too well from its tormentors. Elder Kalen paced his private chambers on Aethel Prime, his perfect posture rigid with mounting frustration. Reports from the Outer Rim were a chaotic mess of anomalies. Another listening post gone, and a supply convoy ambushed in the Valara sector. He snarled, turning to Chief Archivist Xylos. These primitive Solari, they are not supposed to be capable of such coordinated strikes. Our intelligence indicated basic projectile weapons, slow vessels. Xylos adjusted his ocular implant, his movements precise. Indeed, Elder. However, analysis of the residual energy signatures from the Valara incident indicates vessels using modified Aethel technology. Specifically, their shields and propulsion units bear our unique vibrational frequency, yet they function without our genetic biolocks. Kalen stopped, his 4 eyes narrowing. Impossible. Our designs are encoded to our very essence. No other species can interface with them. Xylos met his gaze, a dawning dread in his usually calm demeanor. Yet, the evidence suggests they have, Elder. They are adapting our perfection in ways we cannot comprehend. Their chaos is effective. Deep within the heart of a nebula, the Solari hidden communication hub pulsed with stolen Aethel power. Commander Lyra watched as a technician confirmed the wideband broadcast. Images of the destroyed Aethel listening post, along with salvaged Aethel technology, flickered across the main screen. "Send it," Lyra commanded, her voice broadcast across 1,000 frequencies to species long subjugated by the Aethel. To the Xylar, the Drakon, the silent worlds of the Viridian Reach. Let them see what perfection looks like when it bleeds. Her image, stern and unyielding, then filled the screen. For millennia, the Aethel have called themselves the zenith of order, the flawless architects of the galaxy. They took what they wanted, conducted their experiments, and crushed any who resisted. But their perfection bred stagnation. We, the Solari, who they deemed imperfect, have learned their lessons. We have learned to adapt, we have learned to fight. And now, we offer you a choice. Kneel in the dust of their collapsing empire, or rise and join us. The price of perfection is being paid. And we will not stop until the Aethel are nothing but a memory. Elder Kalen sat on his throne, the silence of the grand chamber broken only by nervous coughs and the rustle of robes. Reports of unrest, once isolated, now flowed in from dozens of subject worlds. Minor rebellions, increased civil disobedience, and disturbing murmurs of open defiance. Xylos stepped forward, his datapad projecting intercepted transmissions. Elder, the Solari broadcasts are proving highly effective. Their message of adaptability is resonating among the oppressed. They are inciting what they call independence movements. Kalen clenched a fist, his irritation turning to a cold, unfamiliar worry. They speak of rebellion? Our subjects know nothing but our order. The courtiers exchanged uneasy glances. The external threat was now infecting the very heart of the Aethel Empire. Elder Kalen stood amidst the swirling holographic projections of his war room, each pinpoint of crimson light on the star map representing another Aethel vessel lost, another outpost silenced. His typically placid features were contorted with a frustration that bordered on fury. Never in Aethel history, in millennia of undisputed galactic rule, had casualty reports painted such a stark, unacceptable picture. "Explain this, Xylos." His voice, usually a smooth current, now grated like stone. These are mere Solari, primitive, unoptimized. How do they inflict such damage? How do they evade our perfected patrols with such abandon? He slammed a fist against the console, sending a ripple through the projected starfield. The red markers flickered, mockingly persistent. Xylos, ever calm, stepped forward, his expression grave. My elder. Their effectiveness is precisely because they are not optimized. They are unpredictable. They do not adhere to patterns. They exploit the very order we impose on the void. In the sterile confines of his private lab, Chief Archivist Xylos felt a cold dread begin to seep into his perfectly ordered mind. Holographic simulations of Solari technological progression spun before him, each projection a stark testament to a nightmare unfolding. My elder, Xylos reported into the void, his voice tight with intellectual alarm. The data is conclusive. What would take our finest geneticists centuries to integrate, the Solari adapt in mere cycles. Their ship construction rates, their weapon efficiency, it defies all Aethel predictive models. He brought up a schematic of an Aethel energy shield, overlaid with crude but effective Solari modifications. Our genetic locks, designed to prevent any non-Aethel species from utilizing our technology, have been bypassed. Not through elegant decryption, but through what I can only describe as chaotic ingenuity. They have found ways to force our systems, to reroute energy, to interpret biosignatures through sheer brute force adaptation. It is a biological imperative, not a technological one. Unquantifiable, unpredictable. The implications were devastating, challenging the very foundation of Aethel superiority. The Grand Council chamber on Aethel Prime, once a bastion of serene consensus, now vibrated with discordant tension. Elder Kalen, perched on his floating platform, attempted to restore order. This is not a time for recrimination. We must formulate a coherent response. But the elders around him were agitated, their perfect composure shattered. One faction argued for overwhelming force, another for strategic retreat to consolidate core worlds, a third for renewed observation, to understand the Solari's anomalous behavior. Xylos, standing at the central console, projected the latest intelligence, reports of a Solari raid using modified Aethel energy lances. Their methods are fluid, he stated, his voice a quiet counterpoint to the mounting arguments. Our defensive grids are designed against quantifiable threats. The Solari, they are a dynamic variable. Kalen slammed his fist on his platform. Dynamic variable? They are a disease. And we shall cure them with the precision of our perfection. But the words lacked their usual conviction, lost in the palpable fear and growing dissent that clawed at the heart of the council. The sterile chamber, once a symbol of flawless control, now felt claustrophobic, a tomb of rigid thought. On the bridge of the Solari command ship, Vanguard Knot, Commander Lyra's gaze was a steel-hard line. Reports flowed in from across the galaxy, flickerings of rebellion, whispers of defiance on worlds long thought subjugated by the Aethel. Her people, once merely subjects of a cruel experiment, had ignited a firestorm, confirmed widespread insurrections on Sector 7 Gamma and the Orion Nexus, her communications officer reported. Aethel garrisons are spread thin, attempting to quell uprisings on over 200 worlds. A grim smile touched Lyra's lips. Good. The seeds of chaos are bearing fruit. She turned to the holographic star map, zooming in on the luminous heart of the Aethel Empire. It is time. Initiate Genesis Protocol. Her voice cut through the hum of the bridge, clear and unwavering. We are no longer striking at the periphery. We are bypassing their outer defenses. We are going for the core. Commander Tavos, prepare Hunter Fleets Delta and Epsilon. Target the primary supply routes to Aethel Prime. Commander Vala, your stealth squadrons will exploit the chaos on the border worlds, then link up with the main assault. Our objective is not to conquer. Our objective is to dismantle their perfection, piece by piece. Leave no doubt, leave no survivors. The Solari fleet, sleek and deadly, began to shift position, a vast array of purpose-built war machines, now hungry for the hunt. This was the point of no return. Elder Kalen stood on the command deck of the central orbital platform, the grand crystalline spires of Aethel Prime gleaming behind him, now bathed in the chaotic flashes of distant explosions. For millennia, these platforms had been the unyielding guardians of Aethel space. Their synchronized energy shields a flawless tapestry against any perceived threat. Now that tapestry was tearing. Solari vessels, small and crude, but imbued with impossible speed and adaptive shielding, darted through the Aethel's meticulously calculated defensive grids. They were not attacking the strongest points, but finding the fluid gaps, the momentary imperfections. "Report!" Kalen's voice, usually a calm resonance, was now a choked rasp. "Elder, they are bypassing our layered defenses. Their energy signatures, they're too erratic to track. We are losing platform GAMMA-7. The tactical officer's voice was shrill with terror. Outside, a massive Aethel dreadnought, a monument of bioengineered perfection, shuddered as Solari-modified energy beams tore through its primary shield array. The ship's elegant form began to buckle, crystalline plating shattering like fragile glass. A shriek of dying systems ripped across the comms, followed by silence. A sight unheard of in 3,000 years. Kalen found Chief Archivist Xylos in his private sanctuary, the serene holographic garden now flickering with distant battle reflections. Kalen's composure, a trait perfected over centuries, had finally fractured. He gripped Xylos' shoulder, his perfect digits digging into the Archivist's placid plating. "Explain this, Xylos, this experiment. It has become an existential war. How could they, these imperfect creatures, shatter 3 millennia of Aethel supremacy?" Kalen's voice was raw, devoid of its usual measured authority. Xylos met his gaze, his 4 eyes holding a profound sorrow. "Great Elder, our perfection was our genetic flaw. We optimized for stability, for order, for an unchanging ideal. We removed the variables, the chaos, the very mechanisms of adaptation. The Solari, they are chaos. They are the unpredictable variable we sought to eliminate. Their imperfections forced them to evolve, to innovate, to embrace change. While we perfected our form, they perfected their capacity to become." Xylos paused. "They learned to swim in the void, Elder. We merely built better ships." Kalen walked through the crowded public squares of Aethel Prime. The pristine avenues, once a testament to serene order, were now choked with his people. Their elegant forms, usually models of perfect composure, were contorted by terror and confusion, families huddled together, their eyes wide with incomprehension. Propaganda broadcasts, once absolute in their reassuring authority, now flickered on public displays, ignored as the distant thrum of orbital bombardment vibrated through the very bedrock of the city. This was the true price of perfection, Kalen realized. A people so sheltered by absolute order that they had lost the capacity for fear, for struggle, for even the basic will to survive when confronted with true, unbridled chaos. Their empire was not merely falling, it was unraveling from within, its perfect threads incapable of holding against the relentless, adaptive assault. Statues of ancient, revered elders began to crumble from the concussive force of impacts, their idealized faces cracking as the empire they symbolized dissolved into dust. On the bridge of the Solari command ship, the Sec Vanguard Commander Lyra watched the tactical display. Aethel Prime was a starburst of red, its orbital defenses collapsing into debris fields. A garbled, desperate transmission flickered onto the main screen. And Aethel Elder, his face contorted by fear and disbelief, pleaded for terms. "Solari, please, we beg you. We can negotiate coexistence. We offer anything." His voice cracked with a terror Lyra had only heard from her own people in the earliest days of the experiment. Lyra's expression remained grim. She remembered the faces of her captured people, the cold scientific instruments, the casual dismissiveness. She remembered Jack's. "Patch me through," she commanded. Her face, hardened by war, appeared on the Aethel screen. "There are no negotiations," Lyra stated, her voice calm, utterly devoid of emotion. "You classified us as a threat. You marked us for study. We have simply reclassified you." She paused, her eyes like chips of glacial ice. "Our objective is not conquest. It is extinction. The price of perfection, Elder, is paid in full." The transmission cut, leaving only the cold, silent resolve of the Solari crew on the Vanguard S bridge. Elder Kalen stood amidst the skeletal remains of what was once the spire of unblemished thought. Around him, the crystalline architecture of Aethel Prime lay shattered, not in elegant ruin, but in a brutal, indiscriminate devastation. Smoke plumes, thick and acrid, clawed at the artificial twilight that still clung to the planet's upper atmosphere. Solari ships, once dismissed as crude vessels, moved with predatory grace through the orbital debris, their energy signatures pulsing as they completed the sterilization protocols. They left nothing but ash where millennia of Aethel perfection had once gleamed. Kalen's 4 eyes, once filled with serene confidence, now reflected only the dying embers of his civilization. He felt no physical pain, a testament to Aethel genetic optimization, but a profound aching regret settled deep within his core. "We engineered flawlessness," he whispered, the words rasping in the dead air. "We achieved stasis. They embraced chaos. They achieved evolution." The irony was a bitter taste. His species, once the unchallenged apex, had failed to adapt, had failed to innovate beyond their self-imposed genetic ceiling. And for that singular, fatal miscalculation, they had paid the ultimate price. The Garden of Flawless Design had become a barren tomb, a monument to the fragility of static perfection when confronted by true, unyielding strength. Commander Lyra stood on the bridge of the * Genesis Ascendant, a vessel forged from salvaged Aethel components and Solari ingenuity. The starfield displayed before her was vast, now free of Aethel dominance, yet still scarred by the recent conflict. Ghostly outlines of destroyed Aethel installations flickered on the tactical map, stark reminders of the war's immense cost. Her people had endured terror, abduction, and near annihilation. They had become something new, something fierce and uncompromising, forged in the crucible of absolute war. She acknowledged the grim necessity of their actions, the difficult choices that had turned them from prey into the galaxy's most formidable hunters. The Solari had learned the hard way that true strength was not in inherited power or genetic purity, but in the relentless pursuit of adaptation. "Perfection," she mused, her voice a low murmur, "is not a state of being, it is a continuous, brutal process of becoming." The Aethel's flaw had been their belief in a finished design. The Solari's future, and their new role as galactic arbiters, would be defined by their unwavering commitment to change, to growth, to the relentless pursuit of what came next. The responsibility was immense, but so was the resolve. Weeks later, on a reconstructed Solari homeworld, a new council chamber hummed with a different kind of energy, no longer sterile and uniform. It was a vibrant space, blending Solari organic architecture with repurposed Aethel crystalline structures, symbols of unity rather than conquest. Commander Lyra, now addressed as Admiral, presided over the assembly, her presence a quiet force. Representatives from a dozen species, once subjugated by Aethel perfection, now sat as equals, their diverse forms and voices filling the room. "We stand at the dawn of a new era," Lyra began, her voice resonating with hard-won authority. The Aethel sought to impose order through genetic design and static rule. They underestimated the power of the unforeseen, the strength born from struggle and the will to adapt. She gestured to the assembled delegates. "Our future will be built on mutual aid, on the shared pursuit of knowledge, and on the understanding that true evolution is an ongoing journey, not a destination." A soft murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. The lessons of the Aethel's hubris were not to be forgotten. The new galactic order would be imperfect, perhaps, but it would be alive, ever-changing, and free. Commander Lyra stood before the towering memorial, a monolith of polished obsidian reflecting the faint artificial light of the Solari underground city. Names, thousands of them, glowed with an internal luminescence, each a spark extinguished in the crucible of a war they had not chosen. Her gaze drifted, settling on a name near the base, Jax. Pilot Jax, whose desperate ram had been the first true wound inflicted on Aethel pride, the first drop of blood drawn from the was perfect. The victory had been absolute, the Aethel Empire dismantled, their very species eradicated. But the Solari were not unscathed. The war had carved deep canyons into their collective psyche, leaving behind a generation that understood survival not as a right, but as a relentless, brutal struggle. They had been forged in fire, stripped of their innocence, yet in that crucible they had found their true strength, not in genetic purity, but in the raw, untamed capacity to change, to learn, to adapt. They were scarred, yes, but those scars were the indelible marks of their perfection, earned, not bestowed. Chief Archivist Xylos, now clad in the functional, unadorned uniform of a Solari scientific advisor, adjusted the holographic projection. Before him, the spectral image of Aethel Prime rotated, a barren sphere of shattered crystalline structures and scorched plains. It was a tomb, silent and devoid of the life that had once pulsed with self-proclaimed perfection. Their perfection, Xylos stated, his voice devoid of its former academic detachment, was their ultimate genetic flaw, a self-imposed evolutionary dead end. He tapped a control, and a complex diagram of the Aethel genome appeared, riddled with redundancies and optimized pathways, beautiful in its static efficiency. They eliminated all variables, all inefficiencies. But in doing so, they eradicated the very mechanisms of adaptation. When faced with an unknown variable, the Solari's chaotic ingenuity, they possessed no internal mechanism for a counter-evolution. Their perfection bred stagnation. Your species, Commander Lyra, embraced the chaos of imperfection, and from that forged true, boundless strength. He looked up from the data, a somber respect in his eyes. The universe does not reward stasis. It demands change. The Aethel forgot that. Admiral Lyra stood on the bridge of the Asterix Pathfinder, humanity's first true deep space exploration vessel, a sleek Solari design that incorporated the best of both species' engineering. Ahead, the shimmering curtain of a newly charted nebula beckoned, a vast, swirling canvas of gas and dust. "Engage jump drive," she commanded, her voice steady and calm, carrying the weight of a galaxy's future. The ship shuddered, the stars outside elongating into brilliant streaks. She gazed at the star map, an infinite tapestry of uncharted sectors. The Aethel had sought to control the known, to perfect it. The Solari would seek the unknown, to embrace its boundless, imperfect potential. They would not repeat the Aethel's mistake, clinging to a singular definition of strength. The universe was too vast, too wild, too gloriously unpredictable for that. Their journey had just begun. Deep within an uncharted nebula, a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a sleek, ancient Aethel seed vault stirred. Dormant for millennia, its crystalline shell began to flicker with faint, internal energy. A lone, optical sensor, like a single, golden eye, opened in the darkness. Scanning for Aethel Empire signature, no matches found. Initiating repopulation protocols, seeking optimal growth conditions. The vault's ancient AI hummed, oblivious to the new galactic order, unaware of the price of perfection.